Welcome everyone to Coleman Report Live, April 20th edition. Today we have Coleman faculty instructor Lance Sexton and our editor Katie Witsucky. Welcome. For all the new folks, we're going to get through this quickly. You can send questions to me, Joseph, at colemanreport.com. Print out the certificate that we provide that is considered training for your regulators. Let's get into this. Katie, what's going on? There's apparently going to be a lot of activity in Washington today. Give us your update, please.
We were really hoping for a deal over the weekend, and it looks like they maybe have come to some kind of agreement at around $310 billion for the PPP loan or loans to be refilled. The Senate is in session as of 2 o'clock Eastern, so that's about an hour from now, correct? So hopefully they'll have a deal in the Senate today, and then it should go to the House tomorrow. And I don't see any reason why the president would not sign this and get it going so that we can go back to the PPP loans.
Yeah, I read that the process will be quick once it gets out of the Senate. Yeah.
Now, my big concern about this is it enough? I don't think it is. I believe that it's just like me, guys. I'm sitting here queuing up my people, getting ready for as soon as they turn the spigot on to start putting PPP applications back into the system for funding. And I think most banks throughout the country are doing the same. So, 310, I wish we had Joe, we probably need to set up some sort of betting odds. Everybody can take a bet on how long they think it'll last. It sounds to me like the money may become available on Wednesday. I'm betting it won't. I'm betting 310 won't last till the next Wednesday.
Yeah, and this is a total of $659 billion once this second round goes through. John Riossi from American Banker hinted that the total number is going to be a clean trillion. So we're not going to go out on a limb and say there's going to be a third round. However, it seems like that's what's shaping up to be.
Yeah, I really hope so, Joe, because one of the challenges from a small business owner perspective, there are a lot of small business owners that applied. Larger institutions, our institution is not a huge, we're about $25 billion, but larger institutions had thousands of applications. And when you looked at SBA's report, there were a couple of financial institutions that processed north of several that processed north of 20,000 applications. Even one did 40,000.
So this graph just came in for the guys that are dialed in. SBA has provided the top 15 PPP lenders without names. The highest being 27,307 approved PPP loans for $14 billion. The average loan size was $515,000. They must have done some of the bigger $10 million loans that we heard rumors about for the franchises.
I'm betting in 1, 2, 3, you're probably going to find Wells, Bank of America, and most likely Chase or Citibank in that group, and it looks like they did. If you're working, I'm just basing this on what I've done, guys. My average loan's about $212,000, so I would fall somewhere in the middle. To get a 515 average, you'd have to have quite a few larger loans. I'm wondering if number one is Bank of America, because Bank of America early in the game said they had $10 billion worth of applications already. I'm just speculating. But it is incredible the amount of people power and resources that would be, especially if you look at number 15. I wonder if that's potentially Cabbage or one of the fintech companies that did that many. It'd be interesting to find out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and who knows when we'll get that list, but SBA is trying to give us as much as they can. I get a ton of stuff over the weekend. This was an infographic from NACO sent over the weekend as well, and they're saying Scams and frauds are obviously a huge concern. And you hinted, Lance, that you're protecting the bank by only having your current customers, but that's changing for a lot of people, I imagine. Right?
Yeah, I think that one of the reasons most financial institutions stuck with current customers is they are a known quantity. We already have individual identification, entity identification. It helps us to avoid potential fraud, and there is a lot of potential fraud in a program like this because we're not requiring, except on sole proprietors, tax returns. A corporation can apply with payroll documentation, entity documentation, and completing the SBA Form 2483. So part of the reason and our leaders probably could tell you more, but I think part of the reason, and the Bank of America and Chase and Wells Fargo did the same. Part of the reason we stuck with current customers is there is a need to know who you're doing this for to avoid fraud, and that's part of the reason for that. The other reason, guys, is when we turned on our application process, we received in a matter of about 48 hours more applications than we had manpower to handle. Not that we've done an incredible job of processing them, and this is true with most banks and financial institutions. We received so many applications, and we didn't open it up to non-customers. Can you imagine the enormous backlog banks would have if they opened it up to everybody?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We've heard about Shake Shack returning their big loan. First of all, a little back. The big franchisees could only get one loan. So it seems like the bigger ones got the $10 million max PPP loan.
Well,
they returned it and they said they wanted to free some funds up for other customers because they were firing and furloughing their employees. What do you think about those things?
One of the things, first of all, they didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
They didn't do a thing wrong. The way the law was written, the way the regulations were written, it relaxed affiliation standards for the hospitality industry. And I agree with that because the hospitality industry has really been hit hard by this. They did not break any rules. It's just that somebody figured out that a large hospitality company that is publicly traded got $10 million. And I assume the reason Shake Shack sent the money back is a lot of negative publicity that went along with it. But I do want to say they didn't break any rules. They followed the application process, and the way the law was underwritten, it relaxed those affiliation rules and would allow a circumstance where a very large organization could have gotten some of the PPP funds. Now, here's my thing. I had this conversation with my wife and a friend. I'm like, the news media wants to focus on the one large organization that got it that probably, didn't necessarily need it. But what about the hundreds of thousands of small businesses that would not be paying payroll this week if they had not received the PPP loan? I want to focus on those, the churches that were in trouble, the small hair salons, restaurants, retail stores that needed this money. The examples of, and if you looked at the chart that SBA provided, yes, there were some larger organizations that got larger amounts, but look at the enormous number of small PPP loans that were processed that help all those small businesses.
And so I want to take some questions, and then we'll talk about our webinar tomorrow. You can send the questions to me directly, or you can do it in the chat function of this webinar. Can lenders expect any relief on the 10-day rule? Most lenders proceeding with, even with the, it'll take more than the 10 days allotted for the smaller banks. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't Well, first of all, the intent of the program is to get money in the hands of small businesses as quickly as possible. And I struggle now. Granted, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but these are not complex loans to close, although they are, because there's not a lot of guidelines about closing them. But again, there's no appraisals, no UCC search, no flood search, no business valuations, no mortgage filings. We're not required to verify insurance. All those things that take a long time to close an SBA loan are not involved in this. They did relax. It was 5 days, and my boss will probably get upset at me, but our institution did an exceptional job. I've shared with y'all every loan that I worked on has been funded already. And I think the purpose of the whole process is to get the money in small business owners' hands. Now, they may relax that 10-day rule, but I'm not real sure if they will or not, because the intent of the program is to get money in small business owners' hands as quickly as possible. So they've already relaxed it from 5 days to 10 days.
Alicia asked a great question. Backlash for the bigger companies getting funds. What chances do smaller businesses have? And I just have to say, we had ICBA on Friday, and there are the lobbyists that are fighting for smaller community banks to have a guaranteed portion of the new funds. So we will. I imagine we'll get everything tonight. SBA has been doing that. They send everything out at 7 or 8 p.m. And then we go through it and try to get you the best answers. Let's go. What do you think the process will be for borrowers to request their loans to be forgiven? John asked that.
That's a pretty exceptional question, because as of this point, I've not actually seen official guidance on how that process works. I mean, my understanding is they have to prove out that they have spent 75% of the money received on payroll, and the other 25% can be spent on things like utilities and rent and interest, mortgage interest on their business building. So small business owners are going to have to prove that. We have not gotten a lot of guidance as of this point on how the forgiveness. Now, guys, SBA and the Treasury is moving at the speed of light, and they're getting processes and procedures in place. I assume what's important right now is getting the money out there, and once, if this second round is the last round, we'll start seeing guidance on forgiveness, because the borrowers have the 8-week period to spend that money on payroll. I think the important thing, I've tried to give guidance to the small businesses I've talked to, make sure and keep an ongoing accurate accounting of what you do with your PPP funding. I've even had a number of my existing SBA loan customers who got PPP loans. I said, open up a separate bank account. That's the easiest way to keep up with it, is open up a separate bank account, and then you can have a very accurate portrayal of what you did with the money, and then forgiveness will be there. So it's a great question. I'd like to tell you I know the answer, but I bet we'll see the answer probably in the next week or so.
Katie or Lance, have you seen any banks been paid by SBA yet? Interesting.
I'm sorry, seeing.
Have any banks been paid by SBA for these fees?
I really doubt it, because SBA has to get an accounting of the PPP loans that have been done. There was some guidance on when, for instance, the webinar tomorrow is going to talk about the 6 months payments. There's some guidance on that. There has not been guidance. My expectation, as soon as there is a reporting of the loans that have been done, I think most banks will start seeing payment of some of those fees in early to middle part of May.
And this one is for tomorrow. Any word on how lines of credit will be handled for 6 months of payments?
There still is. My assumption is lines of credit the interest-only payments will be covered. Now, I have seen questions saying banks are handling this in a very different way, and construction loans was a big question that came up, how to handle construction loans. And my expectation is if it's still in the construction process, the interest-only payment will be made.
Let's see, big question I'm hearing is what if employees won't come back because they're getting paid more with these 600 additional unemployment? Great question.
You know, that's a huge question, and I live in a state where the median household income is not incredibly high, and you've got employees. If you think about somebody who is making minimum wage, the additional $600 probably is more than they're currently making working. So you may see some people, but that doesn't last forever. So, you know, that's a pretty interesting question and pretty interesting twist to this with the additional. Now, I have asked questions because I know a few people who are on unemployment, and I've asked if they've received the additional monies, and the answer has been a hard no. So,
wow. Okay. So,
and I don't know that other than just individuals that I've asked that are on unemployment. I said, did you get the extra money the federal government indicated? And all said, the two, you know, guys, I didn't do a 10,000 person survey. I talked to 2 or 3 people, and they said they had not received it.
Let's talk about what we're going to do tomorrow. The procedural notice came out when was it? It must have been Thursday night. And they gave us guidance on what to do for the next 6 months of payments. They indicated they needed some new stuff today and tomorrow, or latest by the 22nd. So that's why we fast-tracked our event for tomorrow. If you can't make it tomorrow, though, we are doing it next Wednesday as well. Your registration will get you both events. Okay. We wanted to make that clear. Katie, I think we're going to be doing some breaking news articles today and tomorrow. So.
Hopefully that all gets passed today, and it'll go into the House tomorrow.
Yeah.
So the reality, Katie, is we're looking at being able to start doing deals again on Wednesday, probably.
Mm-hmm. That's the hope.
Okay. Well, folks, keep on submitting your questions. I know we threw this together today, but we will have a lot more tomorrow to talk about. And sign up for the webinar. Give me an email. We'll register your bank, and your entire team can listen in. All right, Lance. All right, Katie. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
You have a great day.
Take care.